Hey, I think we're live right now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to all our principal investigators, deputy PIs, co-PIs, representatives from research offices, and I believe we have some partners joining us from across the region this morning as well. First of all, congratulations. Out of a highly competitive pool of applications, we are thrilled to welcome the shortlisted consortia to this full application submission orientation for the Dream for Health call for proposals. I hope you're doing little claps in your stations right now, wherever you are right now. My name is Emil, Governance and Partnerships Lead of CDream, and I will be your moderator for today. Our main objective right now is to provide you with technical guidance and clarifications you need to successfully and smoothly submit your full application. So it is not yet the end. There will be another 2 months of grinding and working on your full applications. Today, our agenda is pretty straightforward. If we can share our agenda for this morning, we will be starting, of course, with introductions, welcome, followed by the housekeeping, and then we will be going straight to the point, the full application submission orientation. We will be discussing what you need to prepare for your full applications and how to manage the application portal. These are already, we hope you already have time to explore the portal, at the same time look at our website to navigate the requirements for the full application. But today we'll be providing you with guidance and clarifications. Later, we'll have enough time for a moderated question and answer session, and we'll close around 11 a.m. Bangkok time. Okay, so next slide. Before we start, let's quickly cover housekeeping guidelines. Throughout the session, kindly use the Q&A panel to submit your questions or comments. You do not need to wait until the end. Feel free to send your questions at any point of the session, including during the presentation and discussion sessions. Now, if you see a question already posted that you agree with or would like to echo, please use the upvote function by clicking the upward arrow. This helps us identify and prioritize the most common questions so that we can easily answer the questions that you're frequently asking right now. And representatives from the CDream team will be actively at addressing and answering questions directly within the Q&A panel, so please look out for that throughout the hour. Any questions that are not answered directly will be raised during the live Q&A portion. Okay, I told you this is a pretty straightforward agenda. Let's go straight now to our orientation. Now, joining me this morning, of course, is the head of program of CDream, Ansgar Schaefer. He will be giving us first a recap and reminder of where we are in the Dream for Health call process and what we are looking for. Ansgar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Emil, and welcome. Good morning, everyone joining us here today. I see we have 75 people joining us. Thank you very much. Good morning. I hope everyone can hear me well. And before I start with the timeline framing and going into the details, I also just wanted to share my huge appreciation for everyone who has made it this far and just joining here today or on our orientation session on Monday. It has been a very competitive process in the preliminary stage. As Emil has mentioned, we received nearly 300 preliminary applications, which we were able to shortlist to now the final 40 application and research proposals we invited to submit a full proposal. So from my side, a big thank you, and also preliminary congratulations for everyone who made it to this stage. We really appreciate the work that has already gone into the proposals from your side, and of course also for those proposals who unfortunately didn't make it into the next stage. And we also appreciate the patience with our grant management, our application portal, and as I mentioned very earlier this year, this is our first big funding call, so it's for us also a learning by doing process. So, but so far all interactions have been very pleasant, very understanding. So thank you from our side for working with us and going through this process together. So just looking a little bit ahead for the rest of the year, while this orientation session really focuses on the full application part and process, just want to give just a little reminder how the rest of the year will look like. The window for full application opened last week on 14th of May, and it will close on the 10th of July at the end of day, so 11:59 basically p.m. Bangkok time, so that's ICT time or GMT +7. Once we receive the full proposals, we will immediately go into the peer review and process, which will culminate in the panel interviews placed to be in mid-October. So we will soon announce who will be our selection and evaluation panel. This will be on our website. And right now, since now we have the data on what applications we are expecting, we can assign the right experts to the right applications to make sure that every proposal is evaluated by the proper expertise. So that then by the end of November, we, through our steering committee, can make a funding decision on the final 8 consortia that will be awarded the CDRIM grant. This is just a very high-level timeline. Again, the focus for today is on the full application. And to start, I want to give a little bit of a reminder, and this will be the red string that will lead you through the full application itself. A reminder on how we will evaluate, based on which criteria we will evaluate applications and proposals. And we have overall 5 domains. On this slide, you'll see the first 3. The 5 domains are generating impactful research, nurturing leadership, fostering regional collaboration, and program governance. And then we also have strengthening research ecosystems and the qualification and operational feasibility. The latter 2 will be on the next slide in detail. So for generating impactful research, what we are looking at and what we are looking for is activities that are informed by and address national and regional health challenges, and research that fills a significant gap in existing science and literature. We're also looking at scientific merit, whether the proposed activities and research develop and test concepts, methods, and technologies that hold potential to contribute to scientific advancements by leveraging transformative, innovative, ethical, novel, and/or interdisciplinary approaches informed by the relevant communities and the current evidence base, including consideration of their applicability, replicability, and adaptability in LMIC settings. So that's quite a mouthful, but the essence here is that we don't want innovation for innovation's sake. We want to have applicable, relevant innovation, and we want to have innovation and thinking informed by the actual use case and the applicability in lower resource settings. We also, of course, which translates into the impact we want to see. We want to make sure that the proposed activities, so we're looking for activities that include a clear and implementable impact strategy that demonstrates the potential for the research to either inform further research, improve existing or new practices, inform policy, and achieve real-world impact. And again, with the attention being paid to sustainability and equitable uptake in diverse settings and resource-constrained contexts. So you can see a clear message there, what we are looking for. When it comes to nurturing leadership and research talent, we're looking for active proposal of activities that can leverage the consortia and developing leaders through the either like leadership and leaders through the expansion of research networks and personal networks, engagement in reputable scientific communities, and creating attractive and long-term research career opportunities and progression. So while proposing training activities is great and very purposeful, we want to see in a wider context how leadership capabilities is being built, sustained, and improved. We're also looking at proposals for specific skills development. So targeted trainings, whether they are research relevant or targeted more towards the institutional or individual research ecosystem capacity, which may include research management, grantsmanship, organizational leadership, and engagement with policymaking. So a broad range. It needs to make sense in the context that is being proposed. But there, for us, the big message is clear that we are looking for proposals that develop leadership and individual skills. Next is regional collaboration and program governance. Here, what we are looking for are plans for equitable and meaningful partnerships within the consortia. I think all of the proposals that we invited to the full application stage have already a very good approach to equitable partnerships, a good consortia structure. But in the full application, we just provide more space to you to describe how your decision-making processes, your participation, governance, and output management among partners will be handled in an equitable and meaningful way. And we really, the evaluators will look for proposals where partnerships are transparent, grounded in mutual respect, and overall, again, the message is to be clear for resource sharing, especially in lower middle income countries. This, of course, also means that partnerships need to be practical. They need to make sense. They need to be well defined with clear roles, equal distribution of resources where it makes sense and is appropriate to the context. And of course, integration of good governance principles. Ideally, the letters of support, which we've asked for in the preliminary application, would expand a little bit and describe more how the institution themselves will support these consortia and how they will be involved in the governance of these partnerships. Domain number 4 looks at the wider ecosystem impact and strengthening of the research ecosystem. Here, we are looking for more context and details on how the proposed consortium will strengthen the research ecosystem within the partnership itself, including institutional capabilities, research culture, infrastructure, and environment, enhancing research ownership and agency, and overall how the institutions and the consortia will support the development of the research ecosystem there. We're looking for description on and emphasis on how ethical research is being promoted and the integrity, transparency, and credibility of research is being assured. We are looking for information on how equity, diversity, and inclusion principles will be upheld throughout the implementation of the research and the partnership, and how outputs will be managed. And lastly, our 5th domain is on the qualifications operational feasibility. Here we are looking based on the CVs, and we're asking for a bit more context on the individuals here. Of course, are they relevant to the proposed research? Are they experts in their field, specifically in the Southeast Asian context? And how each member will contribute to the research, to the activities, and overall creating a positive research environment. We're looking at management experience in the consortia. We are, of course, also looking at the budget and resource allocation, and with the fair distribution between partners, given the context of the proposed research, and an approach to risk management as well. So I'll pause here. I think there was a lot, but I think that sets the scene for the full application form. Back to you, Emil.
Thank you, Ansgar. Okay, so just to recap what Ansgar mentioned, once again, almost 300 proposals. Our initial evaluators, our experts, had a difficult time discussing which proposals will be shortlisted. And for this full application, just a reminder also that it's always anchored. We always go back to our why. We always go back to the objectives of the CDRIM, which are generating impactful research, nurturing leadership, fostering regional collaboration, strengthening research ecosystems, and of course, we have the qualifications and operational feasibility that you will be fleshing out in your full application details. Okay, now, Ansgar, let's proceed to the next part of this application. So what do they need to prepare? I know they're all excited. They all read for sure our guidance in our website, but just to give them to flesh out some of the details that they might have clarifications. Ansgar, back to you.
Thank you, Emil. So yeah, I'm pausing a bit because I'm already reading the Q&As in the chat, which are very good questions. I'll try to cover those already during the presentation, but happy to come back to this after this section. So let me just start out by going through the different sections of the application form, and I'm very aware that we are asking for a lot of information. So the main message for me at this from my side at this point in time is from now to July, now since we have a smaller field of PIs and researchers and proposals we are looking at, feel free to reach out to us through grants@CDream or info@CDream directly if you have questions specifically on the application, on the process, or the content of the application form. Now we have capacity to work with you directly. Of course, we cannot influence and support you in the proposal development, but we are happy to spend our time helping you work through the application structure, the grants management, the application portal, and so on. So we're happy to do this. Also, I want to frame the full application form in a way where we set a very high character limit, in my opinion, for most areas. These are maximum limits which you don't need to exhaust. We did a survey after the preliminary evaluation, and we received quite a lot of feedback, positive and some critical, in terms of our application form, the preliminary form, specifically around the character limits. There are some issues, most of which we have fixed, but there are still we heard the request for more space, and also the issues with our portal itself, where the character limit was not 100% accurate, and there were some issues around the counting, specifically when text would be formatted. Some issues we were not able to fix in time, but generally we just provide a lot of space for you to present your proposal to the evaluators and to us. But again, you don't need to exhaust these character limits. They are a maximum just to give you the space. If you need it, you have it. If you don't need it, you don't need to use it. So starting with our application, we have 19 different sections. Some are short, some are optional, but most are relevant. For easier navigation, we approached it in a way where we made most fields not mandatory, because of the portal navigation between different sections would require you to fill in information before being able to move forward and backward, which I understand can be quite a bit annoying. So most fields, or a lot of fields, are not marked as required and mandatory. But if it's relevant to your proposal, please fill in information and make sure that you go through the full application in detail to make sure you're not missing any fields. That being said, we also provide the full template just for drafting purposes on our website. We shared this through our email. And this is a template that you can use to pre-draft your application, but as in the preliminary application, all applications need to be submitted through our application portal. So let's dive into it and start with the first chapter here, which is the application summary. We tried and we did transfer all information that we had available from the preliminary application already in your full application. So if you go to the portal and you open the application, then you will see that there's a lot of information already pre-filled, and this will be highlighted in blue fields. I'll get to this a bit later, but just to let you know, there is some pre-filled information. You, of course, still can adjust this pre-filled information. If anything has changed, then you can make edits, and it should be clearly indicated where you can make those. There are a few core information which, of course, cannot be changed, such as the lead organization or the PI, which are essential to your initial proposal. But generally, in the application summary, this is where the core details are carried forward. The second chapter is on the personal details, more on the PI, deputy PIs, co-PIs. Here we also carried forward the CV information already provided. But there are a few new sections which we are asking for us to better understand the context and the role of each individual. So this includes the individual's past research and environment contributions, including the generation of knowledge, development of others, and how you have supported the wider research community in the past. There are also then two questions on how individuals will contribute to the research specifically and the wider consortium activities and ensure a positive research environment throughout the partnership. So There are 3 questions looking what have you done, the individuals done so far, and 2 questions on how you will specifically contribute to the proposed research and consortium activities. Maybe one thing I forgot at the beginning is what's on screen here is only exemplary and does not represent the full context of the application form. For this, please go to the application system or look at the template, which will provide you with a full set of questions and fields to fill in information. Here for today, we are highlighting only we want to, for the matter of sake of time, we give you an overview and highlight the most important areas. Chapter number 3 looks at consortium collaboration. Here we are looking more about the partnership itself and the expertise in your consortium, more on an institutional level. So we are asking for description of the collective expertise and capabilities of your consortium regarding multi-country research experience, regarding capacity building, regional health research expertise, and information around research, ensuring research culture, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We are also asking for how each institution and consortium member will contribute to the proposed activities. So what is your collaboration approach? What is the framework for research sharing and institutional capacity building? There's also, what is not on the slide here, space to name collaborators which are not consortium members or consortium leads, of course, or PIs, but more collaborators, whether it's individuals or networks. Similar as you already described in the preliminary application, but if any collaborators have been added, if you establish new collaborations in the meantime, you can add more here. Now, chapter 4 is the research proposal, which is the biggest and I think, of course, the core area. Here we provided, I think, quite a lot of space across at least 4 different sections. The proposal summary, on which a character limit now is 1,300 characters. We are asking for the researcher background and the problem statement, the aims and objectives of your research, and then the biggest part is the approach of research activities and outputs, which would include, of course, the methodology, the research activities and outputs that are anticipated, and overall, you can here. This is where you present the research you want to do and the core of your proposal, basically. We also have then chapter 5 and 6, which are, if it's applicable, on specifics about research involving human participants. So here you would provide information whether if your proposal involves human participants or human biological material. Also specific areas to include more detail on clinical research. We have a separate policy that is published on our website on research involving human participants. Please read those. And we'll also have more policies around and guidelines around each individual chapter here published on our website. I'll present this a bit later. Similar for research involving animals. If your research involves animals or animal tissues, we will ask questions around whether it's non-human primates, cat, dogs, equidae, or genetically altered animals. And there's a few more, a bit more questions to these sections. But these are, of course, only if your research involves animals or involves humans. Next, chapter number 7 is research management and infrastructure. Here we are looking for whether if you are requesting additional resources for research to improve research management infrastructure and overall support to the institutional support for research support systems. Please provide us with a staffing plan. For example, if you're requesting additional support on finance or research support, evaluation, etc., that are part of the staffing. As well as any proposed physical or digital resources for research management. So we are asking for a more detailed general plan, as well as a summary, a written summary of the proposed research management arrangements. For example, how the staff supports the successful delivery of the research, or how new physical resources will complement or build upon existing infrastructure. For us, it will be very important that you identify the current gaps and unmet needs to make a clear case for why these resources are relevant and how will they will support the successful delivery of the research. Chapter number 8 looks at the research outputs and research output management and sharing. Here we are asking for an overview of your output management plan together with details on data and software outputs, research material, publication of outputs, managing how you will manage risk and research misuse, specific more details around specific resources you are asking for and costs you have included in your financial proposal, and how you will manage IP within your consortium. We have already published specific guidelines on this, which is called How to Prepare the Output Management Plan, and you'll find on our website. Chapter number 9 looks at training, research training and development. Here, again, we are asking for more details, what you have already alluded to in your preliminary application on how you will develop research talent and leadership. Specifically, we want to know details on the planned trainings, including the quantity of people that will participate. So we provided space to detail your formal training programs, such as master, PhD, postdoc fellowships, or other fellowships. Your plans around project-specific skills training, career-based continued professional development for researchers, as well as professional training and capacity development for research support staff. So this is all space we have in the application form. If you have activities around this, you can use it. If you don't, leave it empty. Chapter number 10 looks at timetable and milestones. Here, similar to the preliminary application, we would like to know the key big milestones with a short description and the expected delivery dates. This should be very high level and only indicate key outputs and milestones. Excuse me for one second. We also, in this chapter, we are expecting you to upload a Gantt chart. We have prepared a template for this, which you may use, but it is not required to use our template. If your organization or you have a Gantt chart, a similar template that fulfills the same purpose, you can use your own templates. This is where you would provide a bit more detailed, like the key milestones and the activities. Another feedback we received was that it was quite tedious to fill in the individual fields and the milestones and the CVs. So we wanted to simplify this, and the key milestones you still have to do input in our system, but then the details you can upload just through a separate document. Chapter number 11 is the consortium budget overview. I'll go into more detail on this. So this is where you present and upload the budget that you are requesting, the funding that you're requesting. There are 3 different areas which are covered by this chapter. First, table budget summary. This is going to be, and we apologize for this, a little bit tedious. We want to have you are required to manually enter the high-level budget, similar in the preliminary application, into the application portal here, annually and per consortium member in high-level categories. So categories which you are already familiar with. This has to be done manually, unfortunately. I'll apologize for the extra work, but I think it is manageable. Separately from this, we are expecting you to fill out our prepared budget template that we have already shared and is available on the website, which I'll present in a bit. And also, if you are requesting costs on overheads, please provide a letter of justification from your organization, from the lead organization specifically, on what these overheads are being used for. And there's much more details on what the letter should cover in our eligible cost guidelines, which will be linked on the next page. So going into the full application budget template, I just want to cover this briefly. Again, a lot of this is already in our guidance as well in our eligible cost guidelines. In the Excel template, you'll see on the starting with the sheet number 1, instructions, which should guide you through filling everything out, as well as some high-level information on your application, like your application ID, PI, etc. And then the next sheet here is on the budget narrative, providing you space to explain what the requested cost and requested budget is being used for. The key and the core part of this template is the consortium budget overview, which, however, will be automatically filled. We have provided a few different sheets and tabs, which will as the consortium lead and then consortium member 1, 2, 3, 4, up to we provided space for 6 consortium members. I saw one question in the chat already that there are a few proposals which include more than 6 consortium members, which we are happy to share and customize this form for you in the coming days. We can send you an updated version of this for those consortiums that include more than 6 consortium members, so require just a slightly customized budget sheet. We are happy to do this, and we already have a list of which proposals this would relate to, and we will be reaching out to you directly next week. So for this, the consortium lead and each consortium member has to detail their individual budget, enter in the sheet. Of course, this can be done by one centralized person, or you, in your collaboration approach, you can have a shared file where every consortium member can fill in their own budget. How you will manage this is up to you. But then in the end, you will have on the consortium budget overview sheet, you will have an aggregated view of the requested budget for the research proposal. And this might be a bit complex. I think there's, of course, every organization has a different way to prepare and categorize costs, etc. So feel free to reach out to us directly over the next weeks if you have any questions. We're happy to walk you through and work with you together on this. I think what I wanted to highlight briefly is overview of the cost categories. So what we expect a general direction to what to include in which categories. What you will see is also that in nearly each category, we just put a general other costs. So we have one subcategory for other staff costs, other travel and subsistence costs, so which will provide you with a little bit of flexibility in filling out this full application form. So under staff costs, we're looking at, we have provided like subcategories on basic salary and employer contributions, cost on visa, work permit, medical support, disability related support, as well as removal and relocation expenses and collaborator expenses. Under travel and subsistence, we have, of course, travel costs, as well as education and caring responsibility costs for so travel includes longer secondments or stays travel abroad, which would then include education, caring responsibilities, and subsistence and per diem. Under materials and consumables, here falls all costs for materials and consumables that are necessary for carrying out research activities. And then for equipment, we have equipment costs, equipment maintenance, and computing costs. Training and development includes continued professional development, as well as anything related to more structured master's, PhD, or fellowships. And then under direct research, we have the subcategories for animal research, clinical, epidemiological research, as well as field work, subject and volunteer expenses, communication devices, data management, ethical approval, equipment access charges, facility access charges. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a sore throat, so I have to take a break now and then again. We also, for under outreach and dissemination, we include costs related to all communication activities, which could be publications, public engagement, patient involvement, conferences, etc. And then we have a big space for other costs, where anything that is not covered by these other categories and not included under our ineligible costs can be put in. So this could include, for example, costs around MEL, consultancy fees, as well as any costs related to health and safety issues. And then number 9 would cover overheads, which would be our limit would be a maximum of 20% of the total direct cost to cover, which could be used to cover estates, utilities, IT, or other institutional support. Chapter number 12 covers additional support opportunities, and here I'm really excited that I can announce our partnership with the National Research Foundation Singapore and the Agency for Science, Technology and Research, A*STAR in Singapore, which were so kind to give us up to which give us a contingent of Southeast Asian fellowships to attach to our CDREAM application and CDREAM award. So what you are able to do is to apply for a Singapore Southeast Asian Fellowship, or CSAF, within our CDREAM application. Each proposal, like each application from your side, can include up to 2 fellowship applicants. So you can submit up to 2 individuals that would within your consortium work would apply to the Singapore Southeast Asian Fellowship. What CSAF is and includes is selected fellows would be provided with up to 2 years of support, which includes salary, living allowance, and airfare. And there are 2 different modalities. So this could include researchers that are part of the CDREAM consortia to work on projects at a Singaporean host institution, or it includes Singapore-based researchers to work on projects at host institutions in other Southeast Asian countries. So what this means in terms of who is actually eligible for these awards, the CSAF applications are open to researchers, only PhD holders, who will be part of a CDREAM consortium. So they need to be named as an individual, whether it's a deputy PI, co-PI, or a collaborator. And it is eligible for consortia that include a Singaporean institution, whether this would be as a lead, as a consortium member, or as a named collaborator. So it means that even if your consortium does not include a Singaporean institution as a consortium member or lead, you can still include and collaborate with a Singaporean institution, and then your consortium is eligible for these fellowships. In terms of research focus, the research itself must align with the research proposal of the consortium, of course, and there's further guidance available on the website. You can, as I mentioned, you can apply for up to 2 CSAF awards within your proposal. How you do this? So there's a little bit of extra work for this, of course. What you need to do is you download the CSAF application form from our website, and then in section 12 of the full application, you will be able to upload this application form, and to get what is also required is a separate format of your CV. I'm sorry for the duplication, but this just enables the selection process, as well as your passport page and any academic transcripts. So there's an upload space for this, and this needs to be submitted together with your full application if you want to make use of this. Just for context, our award, the Dream for Health Award, is not contingent on the CSAF award. So even if you are not awarded any CSAF fellowships, you still, of course, might be awarded our Dream for Health Award. However, other way around, if you're not awarded the Dream for Health Award, it is very unlikely that you will be awarded the CSAF fellowship within this process, and this will be fully at the discretion of NRF and A*STAR if this would be the case. So yeah, I think there's a really great opportunity, and our gratitude to NRF and A*STAR for making this possible. Next, and coming to a close here, chapter number 13 looks at monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Here we want to know your plans on how you will monitor program activities, how you will evaluate program outcomes and impact, how you will engage stakeholders to assess your effectiveness, and how you will create learning activities based on the results of the monitoring and evaluation efforts. We're also asking for your theory of change around the proposed activities, as well as a high-level logical framework that will show how the overall activities lead to outputs, lead to outcomes, and the impact that you're proposing in your theory of change. We're also asking for your approach to ensure equity, diversity, and inclusion across the design, implementation, and governance of your research. Chapter number 14 looks at public and policy engagement. Here we are looking for your plans on, you can describe your plans on how you will engage with non-academic communities, as well as policymakers at a local, national, or regional or global level, and including plans on how they could inform, use, and find value in your research. Number 15 looks at project risk evaluation. Here you can describe how you will identify, assess, and manage project risks. We are expecting you to upload a risk register. Again, we are providing an optional template for you, which you may use, but if you have something that works for you already, feel free to use your own templates here. Chapter number 16 looks at environmental sustainability. We're asking how throughout the activities and research you will minimize environmental impact, and how you will select methodologies that align with minimizing environmental impact and ensuring environmental sustainability across the research and other consortium activities. Coming to an end here, chapter number 17 is just an optional one where you may suggest reviewers, which we can include in the review of your proposal. Of course, this should be free of any conflict of interest, and just gives you space and for us to increase the pool of qualified experts who might be in the best position to review the research that is being proposed. This is fully optional. And then number 18 and 19, you're familiar with this. If there has been any updates from the information provided in the preliminary application form, you may update those here, and otherwise just confirm your eligibility information we need to ensure that there's eligibility, and then which we will carry further in our due diligence processes and overall sanitary checks. So just to wrap up this session, a brief overview on what documents are needed. Just going from top down, we are asking again for resubmission of the letter of support for PIs, deputy PIs, as well now as for the co-PIs from the respective employing organization. I know you already have submitted a letter of support for the preliminary application, but of course, since there might be a change to any context and to maybe the consortium structure, maybe the scope of the research, and there's now more space and details to support, we're expecting a resubmission of these letters of support in an adjusted way. I think I probably can save myself from going through the list in detail. And this is also something that is shared not only on our website, but also in our full applicant guidance. So lastly, you can find all this information on our website. We have a few specific under our guideline sections. We are going to publish more and more categories and guidelines for you that should support you based on the chapters and information we are looking for, should support you in developing your full application. So feel free to scan the QR code, go to cdream.org, and you'll see all the information we just present here today. So that was quite lengthy. Again, it makes me more aware of the volume of information we are asking for in the full application. But I hope that you understand that this will, again, it is a very competitive process. We want to make sure that we are funding the best proposals. And for this, we need a lot of information. And yeah, back to you, Emil.
Thank you, Ansgar. Yes, that was quite a handful. Before we proceed, Ansgar, we have a lot of questions already. So pertaining to what are required for the full application process. So before we proceed to the managing the application portal, let us answer some of the questions. Just so that there's still that recent effect of your presentation. The first because one of the most avoided question, yes, please don't worry, we will be sending the PowerPoint presentation after the second town hall meeting. Okay, so Ansgar, the first most voted question would really be about the feedback on the preliminary proposal to guide further developments. We've mentioned in our guidelines that they will receive this. Where can they access the feedback, and when can they expect to receive the specific feedback for their proposals, preliminary proposals?
Yep, I see the very good question. So we, since due to the volume of application that we received, we are still preparing the feedback for each individual, the 40 applications which are now invited to full proposal. And we will be sending out individual feedback I think we can comfortably say by the end of next week, every participant applicant will have received some feedback on the preliminary application. Of course, our feedback is will be a bit limited and will be very high level. As a neutral body, we cannot influence and shape your proposal. We don't want to do that. So we will provide some feedback on what the reviewers in the preliminary stage have acknowledged as strengths and potential weaknesses. But please be aware that this is not a direction. This is for you to take up or leave. We do not want to influence any direct creation of the proposal, and the ownership should be within you. But we can commit to sending feedback by the Friday next week, which should be then the 29th of May, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you, Ansgar. Okay, so this question has been answered, but there's a follow-up question. So the question is, how many applications are planned to be funded, and what is the budget allocated for this session? As the answer is, up to 8 consortia will be awarded, with a maximum award per research of 6.5 million US dollars. But Ansgar, there's a follow-up question on this. They are wondering if there is a cap per country with regards to the final successful award, or will it be purely by the 5 domains set and the due independent peer review process?
So yeah, first of all, the already mentioned, we are planning to award at least 8 consortia out of the 40, and with a maximum of 6.5 million. So thank you for covering that already. Generally, we will make our steering committee will make the final funding decision based on the recommendations of the peer, our selection and evaluation committee. However, the steering committee is in the position to make funding decisions also under consideration of geographical and thematical distribution across the 8 consortia that we want to fund. So it is mainly and majorly based on the independent peer review selection process, and the decision on our independent steering committee. That is, you can visit our website to see who is on the steering committee. But for equity purposes, there will be a consideration on whether we are covering, while still upholding the recommendations from the evaluation and selection panel, to ensure that we fund really excellent proposals while covering as much geographical and thematic space and having a good balance across the consortia portfolio at the end of the decision-making process. So that way, I'm saying it is mainly majorly on the selection evaluation panel recommendations, but we keep an eye on the balanced portfolio.
Okay, Ansgar, 3 more questions about budget before we proceed to the next session, so that we can have a quick discussion on the portal and then have a dedicated Q&A session. So just another question is, for the overhead justification letter, is it 1 letter per institution or 1 letter from the lead organization for the overhead?
It would be 1 letter for the. It's actually it would be 1 letter from the lead organization for overheads. Yeah, that from the lead organization. Ideally, yeah, no, so never mind. It should be one letter from the lead organization for overheads.
Okay. And then how does C-Dream treat mandate, this one is on taxes, how does C-Dream treat mandatory in-country taxes in budgets? Are these considered eligible costs, and should they be included within overheads or listed separately?
So these taxes are eligible costs. They need to be included in the proposed budget. So let's assume you will exhaust the 6.5 million. This should be including of tax, and you should mention this in other costs. Or you may, this is up to you, you may include it in overheads. Then you would need to elaborate this in the letter of justification, make this clear. Or you can cover this under other costs. So this would be up to you, but you can put it in the other cost section or in overheads and then include it in the letter of justification.
Okay, and then last one before we proceed to the next, and then later on we'll have a dedicated session again. To what extreme can the estimated total budget and consortium research duration be amended in the full application if compared to the preliminary details? For example, the preliminary budget is for the preliminary proposal is 4.5 million, and now they want in full, but then they increase up to 5.5 million USD, for example, and also the duration of their consortia.
Yeah, so you can, so budget and duration you can adjust. I think probably more upward to exhaust the limit rather than scaling down would probably be the logical direction. But you can make adjustments to the proposed duration and the proposed budget if you, for example, have considered additional activities now, given the structure of the full application. Maybe there are some areas that have not been covered in your preliminary application, which you now want to put budget behind to create a few more consortia-based activities. So you can fully increase the duration and the budget given the limit that we have set. If you are decreasing the duration or the budget, this is also possible. I think it still needs to be within our given threshold of at least 4 million USD and a minimum duration of I think we said 42 months, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So Ansigar, there are still a lot of questions in there, but we'll pin that for now, and let's proceed to managing the application portal so that we can have a more dedicated time for a Q&A later. Okay, Ansigar, back to you. I know they're all excited also for this with all the challenges, concerns last time. Thank you, Ansigar.
Good. Yeah, and I also just to preempt, I saw one question which I want to address is whether we will have another section once you have started engaging with the application form and developing your proposal, which we are happy to schedule. Right now, we have not set a calendar date yet, but we would be very happy to set another like Q&A session, potentially mid-June or towards the end of June. So I saw that question, and that's definitely something that we'll announce and are happy to do. So how to manage the application portal? I'm positive that this will be a shorter explanation now that everyone is familiar with the portal already. And but let me walk you through it a little bit. So the first step is how you will access your application. I assume, and I hope everyone already has discovered this. You have received an invitation email, and as a PI, you should use, or you have to use, the same account that has already been created in the preliminary application process. So you should be pretty familiar with how this looks. To access your application, you go to Applications, and then you'll see the filter My Applications, and you can you click on the application ID to then go to your actual application. There, on the top, you'll see we added a few new fields that are hopefully for your benefit. The first part is that now you can invite guest editors, including co-PIs, to help you edit and develop and put information into this application. How to do this? To do this, you have to first, you may update and add any co-PIs. So as part of your full proposal, if you further develop your research proposal and perhaps you have the opportunity or the need to add more co-PIs to your proposal, you may do this just on using the Update Add co-PI button over there, which allows you to add co-PIs to your proposal. Then, if you want to invite your co-PIs to help you edit the application, you can go to Invite co-PIs, and you will see a pop-up field which will allow you to either invite all co-PIs to help you edit, or you can select the individual co-PIs that are attached to your application. So once you select the send invitation, the co-PIs receive an automated email invitation if they already have an account, perhaps from developing their own proposal. Then they will use their already existing account. If they do not have an account yet, they will receive a link, an invitation to create a new account. I should mention that the link expires within 72 hours. So if they do not access the link and create an account, then you would have to resend this invitation. So this is up to you to coordinate internally. You can also invite guest editors, which are not co-PIs. So these you can invite directly through email. Here, these guest editors, you can, first of all, you can see who are your current guest editors at the bottom of your application. So you can keep and manage who the guest editors are. This could be, for example, colleagues from your research office or maybe other staff members who help you prepare certain areas of the application, whether this would be on maybe potentially risk and monitoring evaluation aspects, maybe it would be the preparation of the budget. So that just allows you to have multiple people working at different areas of the application, which they might be responsible for or can support on. One thing that I want to highlight is that this is a new feature. And given how the saving of information works and some lessons we have learned, I really want to make sure that that you coordinate when you know that there will be multiple people editing the application, especially at the same time, and double check whether all information is saved correctly, because there's always room for technical issues. So if there are multiple people potentially editing and saving the same text box in the same chapter, that it might lead to complications. So always double check the information and whether the information is saved correctly. Next, something that you are now also familiar, the process for approval of the full application is similar to the preliminary application. So you would, as a PI, you need to submit this submit your proposal to your organization's research office, who should review and then either approve or reject the proposal, depending on whether it is complete and approved by your organization. And then as a PI, you submit the proposal to CDREAM. So you've already all done this process. You should be familiar, just to reiterate. If in the meantime, if you are now able to invite a different research office, maybe if the personnel has changed, or you just want to need to invite a different office email for this, you can do this. But please be aware that there's only always one research account that can be tied to one application. So if you invite a new research office email, then the old research office account will not have any access to your full application anymore. Currently, going into the full application, right now, the research office account assigned to your application is the same research office as from the preliminary application. So if that all remains the same, you don't need to do any new invitation here. Now coming to the core part, how to edit. I mentioned we try to carry over as much information from the preliminary application as we can to make it easy for you. And you will see any information that has been carried forward with a blue, like a light green, light blue background, so which will indicate this is information extracted from your preliminary application. You can edit most of these fields. As I mentioned, some are not editable because they are just essential to your application. But generally, you can just edit. You can each section, please save if you want to, if you've completed entering information. And then if you want to move to the next section, just click Save and Next. You're all familiar with this now. We try to optimize it a little bit. There are some, of course, compromises where it comes to where there are mandatory fields which will block you from moving to and shuffling through the different sections easily. What you can do is just fill in placeholder information there and then allow you to move to the next session. But make sure that you keep track of what is placeholder information, so that you're not missing any crucial information later. And then the final step, or not quite the final, as I mentioned, the same process. Once your proposal is complete, you submit it for RO review. And then you can see the status in the approval history, whether it's currently under RO review, whether it's approved or rejected. And once you have received the RO approval, then please go to submit the full application to Seadream. So you've all done this already for the prelim application, and please, you're familiar with the process. You can also now download your application as a PDF during the process and once it's completed, so you have a copy of your application file. And this was, I think, quite a quick outline of how this works. We have a full 27-page manual available on our website. And as I mentioned, now we have more time capacity and a smaller group to focus on, so please always reach out to us at grants or info@seadream.org. Sorry, back to you, Emil. I'll just drink some water.
No problem. Thank you very much, Ansigar. And thank you very much for our participants or the shortlisted teams or consortia. Yeah, we are 98 people watching this morning. Ansigar, let's start. Let's dedicate the next 30 minutes to answer the questions from our Q&A panel. Some questions are already answered by the Seadream team. So let me start first with the questions that haven't been answered in the Q&A panel. So Ansgar, one question is around financial management. Is routing of funds, sub-awards from lead organizations to government partners through research management organizations allowed?
Could you potentially either pin this question in chat so I can see it, or repeat it?
Yeah, let me check this one in the in the chat box. Yeah. You see?
Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. So routing of funds sub-awards from lead organizations to government partners through research management organizations allowed. That is a quite broad question, which I probably would need more details on what the plan is. So because the lead organizations will provide sub-awards and route funds to the consortium members, right? So if the consortium members are if the government partners are named consortium members, then this would be possible. And if the arrangement for government partners to receive these funds are through research management organizations, this would be, I think, we do not have definite criteria that would disallow this process, but we would definitely require clear justification of why this is needed and where these partners sit within the consortium. So this management and governance and funding structure would have to be very clearly explained. And it would need to make sense to ensure that there's not any, that it is efficient and does not subtract from any significant funds that could go towards research and activities. There needs to be a clear reason why this is the setup that is being proposed, and all organizations involved need to be very clear named members of the consortium with a specified role in the activities. So I would probably require a bit more context if the person who asked this question could provide more of this. Please reach out to us directly through email. We can clarify this now in more detail and look into the specific case. Generally, I'm leaning more towards being a bit cautious on this. This would only probably make sense if this is really essential for the consortium and the funding mechanism to work out.
Okay, next question. From the 40 applications, they're wondering if there will be another shortlisting process prior to the mid-October panel interview, since only 8 will be awarded. And another one regarding on distribution, if each theme, how many applications will be recommended for each theme?
So there will be no shortlist. Currently we are planning to invite all applications proposals we received to the interview process. I think we already did a significant shortlisting step from nearly 300 down to 40, and we want to give everyone the chance to present and explain the proposed research, ideally in person. We are planning to invite PIs and co-PIs most likely to Bangkok to hold these interview sessions and engage with the researchers. So we are not planning any additional shortlisting steps. So if you submit the full proposal, we are planning to invite you to the interview stage in mid-October. When it comes to the distribution across each theme among the 8 consortia awarded, as I mentioned before, we are looking to have a balance, but it's not a clear 2-2-2-2. There's, of course, in terms of thematic areas we received and represented across the 40 applications now, it's also not all equal across theme. So we are not planning to have a certain number of applications recommended per theme. Ideally, we want to fund the best proposals. I mentioned there might be some considerations regarding balance. I think we want to have at least one proposal represented, one theme represented within the 8 awards, but it's not a firm or definite number that we have in mind.
Okay. Okay, now the next question is on approach for research activities in output section. Should the level of methodological detail be closer to a program level overview or a protocol level description for each objective?
So in this, we have set a character limit of nearly 20,000 characters, which means you should provide as much detail as possible. So we want to give you, and our guidance also specifies that you ideally give us present a full and detailed analysis of the study design, including details of any validation already undertaken or rationale for using standard protocols. Pay attention to power calculations, sample size justifications where it's appropriate, case definitions, and exclusion criteria. So be really specific on your research questions, your hypothesis, how you want on the study design, methodology, any interdisciplinarity and innovative approaches, sampling, data collection, data analysis approaches, etc. So as much information and as detailed information you can give, this would be the section to provide it.
Okay. In relation to that, another applicant asked us to flesh out what are we looking for on the narrative section on risks, dependencies, and uncertainties related to budget numbers or the cost.
Would this relate to our
risk management?
But risk management, so we have 2 places. We have in the application form, we are asking for a general risk approach to managing risk, which again, this would relate to your research, to your activities and overall consortium activities. I think what this question goes into is the section within our budget template, where we are asking for whether there are certain risk dependencies or uncertainties related to the budget, budget numbers and costs. So what we're expecting here is just, we know budgets are not 100% accurate. Budgets are an estimate, they're being developed under certain assumptions. And what we would be expecting you is to think about when you calculate the budget, under what conditions have you done these calculations? What would be certain risks? For example, let's say the oil price increases much further. Would this impact your proposed budget considerably? Or anything else, potentially maybe some certain materials increase in price exponentially for some reason, for some potential reason in the future. So think about how certain likely or potential risks may affect the budget that you are proposing, and specific items there. Or potentially, let's assume you're planning 5 workshops throughout the duration, but there's a certain pipeline in your program. If this works out, maybe you want to increase this to 8 workshops. So then there are certain dependencies between between certain budget categories and activities, which would then might impact your budget. This helps us understand how you arrived at the numbers you are proposing, and also will help us anticipate potential variations in required expenses in the future.
Okay, thank you. The next one is relating to CSEF. As for the CSEF scheme, does the costing in the application be independent from the budget stated with the full application submitted to CDream?
Yes, so actually the CSEF application and scheme does not require any budget inclusion. Because the funding is provided by NRF and A-STAR, that you would just propose a candidate for this fellowship, and then any funding budget support would be arranged outside of our CDream award. So the budget you propose within CDream should only fully focus on your CDream activities, while for the CSEF scheme, you propose the candidates that want to apply for this fellowship.
Okay, thank you, Ansgar. Ansgar, two questions relating to fund management. The first one is it allowable for the PI to manage the finance or funding from the other country member or consortium member due to the limitation of financial process and resources from the consortium member or the country member?
Generally, no. This would be there's a quite big risk to saying yes to this from our perspective, because that agency, well, budget translates to agency most of the time, and we want to make sure that each consortium member has agency and ownership over their own activities. So from that perspective, I'm more inclined to say no. If it is a necessity to do so, then what would be required within the proposal, and then looking at research management and infrastructure, is a clear pathway on how this consortium member, who's currently not able to manage the resources on their own, will over the next few years, within the duration of the proposal, will establish mechanisms on how they can manage this budget on their own. So there needs to be a clear translation institutional development pathway within the consortium duration on how this capacity will be built and handed over to the specific consortium member. So my guidance here would be avoided as much as possible. If it is necessary to maintain the consortium constellation, it needs to be really clearly spelled out and planned out on how this will be and how this will change and will be established over the duration of the consortium.
Thank you. Okay, next one, relating again to fund management. Can the grant funds be managed by a third-party fund manager?
Similarly, we said, I remember our previous webinars and discussions, we do say yes, but it needs to be very clearly contextualized of why this is necessary. We are aware that there are certain legal regulatory frameworks that don't allow all institutions to receive and send out funding to foreign sources. So if this is an unavoidable necessity, yes, it needs to be very, very clearly outlined in the partnership structure. It needs to make sense from a financial standpoint so that we can guarantee value for money, and there is not a subtraction of funding just for the management of it, which could go towards research or activities. So yes, if it's a necessity, it needs to be really clearly outlined, because this is going to be the independent reviewer, the selection evaluation panel, and the steering committee. This will be something that will be looked at very closely on why it is necessary. Does it make sense, or does it lead to a loss of resources potentially?
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, next question is, When several projects have been shortlisted under the same lead applicants, should we prioritize internally or allow full competition based on scientific merit during the review process?
I want to differentiate between lead applicants who could look to PIs and organizations, right?
Yeah.
I assume this question comes from organization perspective, since for PIs it's only one PI can only lead one application. I'm from our side the full competition based on scientific merit during the review process. We did set an initial limitation on how many preliminary applications can be submitted by an institution. I think all institutions kept that limit. So going forward, there are certain institutions who have multiple proposals in the running among the 40 proposals now. If there is a concern that, let me say first, we on the final 8, we made it clear in the initial announcements that we will award one lead organization can be awarded up to 2 C-Dream awards among the 8, but only if they are held by distinctive different faculties and if they address distinct different themes. So in theory, an institution could be the lead for 2 different C-Dream proposals, and this is still the case. So from our side, we do not want to influence this any further. Of course, as an institution, if there is an overlap in personalities involved, and in case you get awarded both proposals, but for some reason then the same person would be involved in both and cannot commit to this time and contribution, this would be then a risk that you carry and a consideration you should follow in the design and the submission of proposals.
Okay, Ansgar, thank you very much for that. Another question on structure, especially for the co-PIs. Can we have a deputy co-PI at every consortium member organization? So you have the PI, deputy PI, co-PIs. Can they have a deputy co-PI? And at the same time, another this follow-up question on this. In the event that the co-PI is no longer available to fulfill the role, how can the PI determine and appoint a new co-PI?
Let me just address this question. So from our side, you can absolutely do this, but this would be related to your consortium arrangement. So in our structure, because for us, we will provide funding to the lead organization. The lead organization is responsible for upholding our requirements, policies, and conditions within the consortium. And this, whether you want to establish deputy co-PIs at every consortium member organization, would be something that you within your consortium need to decide. Since from our side, our contact point is the PI and then the deputy PI at the lead. And this is of course, for legal reasons and for grant management reasons. If you want to establish deputy co-PIs at each consortium member organization, I think that makes absolute sense. But this is something that you should establish within your consortia, which is not required to have within our application form. However, it would make sense, of course, to outline this approach in your collaboration structure and as part of the narrative on how you will ensure continuity, responsibility across consortium members, and overall fulfillment of the proposed activities. In the event that a co-PI is no longer available to fulfill the role, how can the PI determine upon the new co-PI? Again, this will be the responsibility of the consortium, either the lead or the consortium member that is responsible. So when you look into our grant agreement, grants conditions, which we will publish very, very soon, it is the responsibilities there are outlined on how to maintain and ensure that the proposed research is being delivered. But again, these are arrangements that you should have within your consortia and agree within your consortia.
And Cigar, regarding the panel interview in mid-October, how do you organize the interview in mid-October? Should the lead PI, deputy PI, and other co-PRs attend? Is this an online call?
Yes. So we want to make our plan is to make this an in-person interview. We would be inviting all PIs and named co-PIs, and of course the deputy PI. Invite them to join us in person, most likely here in Bangkok. Our program will cover flights and accommodation and expenses for this duration. Yeah, online is an option, but a not preferable option. We think that in person is the best way to for people to represent their research, represent their partnerships, and overall engage with the selection panel. So we want to give everyone the opportunity and the best opportunity to present their research proposal, their partnership, their consortium structure together in this in-person interview panel. We will make online options available if there should be difficulties regarding travel or availability, but we would prefer in person, and we will carry the costs for this interview stage.
Thank you, Ansgar. Okay. Next question is this. With regards to the staff salary, does it pay for extra time spent by the currently fully salaried academic staff? Or could the academic staff take unpaid or partial time off from work and be paid accordingly from the funding over the period of the consortia work for necessity reasons, giving better attention to complete the consortia research or the activities of the consortia?
Let me digest this question
Yes.
briefly. So with regards to the staff salary, does it pay for extra time spent by the currently fully salaried academic staff, or could the academic staff take unpaid or partial time off from work and be paid accordingly from the funding over the period of the consortia work for necessity reasons of giving better attention to complete the consortia plan works? So all salaried staff or costs for staff that are requested within the budget needs to be for staff that are employed by the organization, whether it's a consortium lead or consortium member, right? That means there needs to be an existing contract between that staff and their employing organization, which should state that where their salary comes from, and for key researchers, it might state that their salary needs to come from grant funding. Staff cannot take unpaid time off from work to work for the DREAM consortia because there needs to be an employment between the staff and the consortium member. So there needs to be an existing employment contract. And if it is a necessity to take time off from work to contribute to the C-DREAM activities, then this is ineligible. So this is not possible. Your employer needs to be part of a C-DREAM consortium, either as a collaborator or consortium member or lead, so that your work is being part and being salaried under this arrangement as part of your ongoing job and employment. Our structures are based on institutional agreements. We are providing our funding to the lead organization. And as part of the consortium and as an individual being salaried under the consortium budget and contributing to the consortium work, you need to have an employment contract with an organization named and involved in the consortium.
Okay.
It is a bit of a, for me, a bit of a question I would have not expected. If you want to have further details on this, please reach out to us directly, and we would require a bit more information, and we're happy to engage.
Yep. Thank you very much, Ansgar. I think we've exhausted all the questions. unless there are additional ones coming in. Some of the questions have been addressed already in the chat box by our CDream team. Thank you very much to our team on the other room for doing the work in answering some of the questions. Yes, Ansgar?
I just saw, I think one more question was just shared, whether it would be possible for the co-PI to move to other organizations during the CGM project.
Yeah.
Generally, so like, of course, mobility of individuals involved is expected. This would be communicated in advance. It depends on what the move implies, whether if the co-PI moves to would the co-PI still be involved in the research activities and the proposal? But generally, it is possible. It shouldn't happen too often, but it's of course naturally the case. So either there needs to be a replacement structure in place, or there needs to be a framework on how the move and the new organization will be basically allocates time for the co-PI to still contribute to the research project. But this is something that is I think not too uncommon, and generally we can work with that. But this is during the implementation stage. So if during the full proposal development, if there are new consortium members joining, that would be definitely need to be indicated. So sorry, Emir, back to you.
Yeah, no problem. A last one, I think this one wasn't answered also in the chat. They state it's more of the requirement. So the additional information in the figures must be included in maximum 2 A4 pages. Is there a limit to the number of figures that can appear inside the doc?
No. You can we make use of the space you have of the 2 pages as much as you can. It should be still readable, of course. But yeah, feel free to make use of the full 2 pages.
Okay, I think that is it for this morning. For the questions, Ansgar, any final message and reminders before we end this orientation session?
First of all, thank you. Apologies for the short breaks and the coughing a little bit. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll have another session like this on Monday. This will be a more or less repetition of today's session. So if you join today, feel free to join on Monday, but I don't think you're missing much. The next part is please continue to visit our CDM website. We will be publishing more and more guidelines and guidance, which has been created together with our partners from Welcome, FCDO, and overall our network, to give more ideas, thinking around specific sections of our full application, and overall provide you just with more tools and help when it comes to developing these proposals. I mentioned it now 2 times, now the 3rd time. Reach out to us through grants@cdream.org, or we also shared our direct phone number in the slides.